Welcome to a new episode of AgileTD Mondays. Today with Selena Delesie. Welcome, Selena. Thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
We will start in just a minute. But first, I would like to announce our 13 keynote speakers for this year's Agile Testing Days in Potsdam in November. Among Katrina Kloki, Marit Pyhäjärvi, Purnima Vijayashankar, Janet Gregory, Liz Keogh, Angie Jones, Ash Coleman, Emily Weber, and Natalie Warnett are also Keith Klein, Jess Humble, Paul Holland, and Claudio Perona. You can book your tickets now and don't miss these awesome people. You can save up to €500 with our super early bird discount pricing. And now to Selena and her talk. Enjoy it.
Thank you so much. So today I'm going to speak about practical Agile test leadership. And I've taken a few different angles with this particular talk in the past. And today I'm going to go through some characteristics around leadership and specifically what those characteristics are like when they're present in different activities that we're engaging in our Agile organizations. So a little bit about me. For some of you who know me, I do a lot of speaking. And I've done a series of videos on YouTube also. I teach and love to engage with people in workshops that I teach. And I also love to do a lot of physical activities outdoors. And I think that all of these things are important to reflect on, like what makes up the whole person that is coming into the work that we each do. And bringing that whole person to work is partly what we're going to talk about today. So when we speak about leadership specifically, I want to pose some questions for you because this is important for you to step forwards into your own personal leadership. You don't need to wait for permission from other people to step into leadership. And when I'm working and coaching in organizations and teams, what I'm looking for is for each individual to empower themselves to be in personal leadership. So to do that, questions that you can consider are there any areas that you are avoiding responsibility in? Are you waiting for permission? Are you perhaps deflecting opportunities to take responsibility in a domain? Are you maybe digressing with management about what opportunities they're giving or not giving you? Are you driven by fear or by courage? When we're driven by courage, we step into things that maybe are uncomfortable. And by fear, we wait and we wait. And we have a lot of things that we want to say that we're often not saying. Are you evolving and mastering yourself? You can evolve yourself in different technical opportunities, different technical practices and traits. You can also evolve yourself in your own personal developments around different skills to engage and interact with other people. You can also evolve and master yourself in terms of your own habits and behaviors. And also, in what ways do you innovate? Do you innovate on the job? Do you innovate in your own practices and behaviors? Do you innovate in your life with your family, with your friends, with your hobbies? When we are looking at these different questions and incorporating truth into the answers, and you can do this in your personal life, but I will challenge you to do this at work, to reflect on how can I really improve to step into leadership in my organization. When I'm looking at a team, I'm looking for every single person on that team stepping into leadership. Leadership does not mean that one person is leading the way and everyone else is following. That is a common thing that we see happen, yes, but I've also seen teams where every person in that team is a leader. And those are the teams that step into high performance. The key here is that you're not waiting for permission from somebody else, and you are choosing to be the creator of your own life and your own experience at work. There's 7 different traits that I often collapse on with people when I talk about leadership. These are communication, commitment, creativity, courage, connection, curiosity and clarity, and class. And the 3 that I want to focus on today, because we have limited time, is creativity, curiosity, and courage. And I want to look at what do these things really look like and what do they mean. These are terms that we often see and we talk about, but we don't actually put them into practice really effectively in our organizations, and certainly not on a personal level at work. So with courage, what does courage really mean? When I'm looking at different traits like courage in an organization, I actually usually task to the people that I'm working with and ask them, what does courage really mean to you? so that they stop and reflect on what it really means for them, and are we there yet or not, and do we want to be there? So some of the ways that I look at courage, it comes to challenging the status quo. So we're not complacent to this is the way things always are. We're seeing opportunities to change and improve things. We're confident, even if we're scared, and even when we're scared. We're willing to take risks, we speak up, we try new things, we move through the fear, and we realize that mistakes and failures are just opportunities to improve because we're learning as we go. If we need to be perfect in everything all the time, we're not going to try new things because we're risking the opportunity to fail. And for many people, that is a really scary thing to step into. So we look at courage as something that guides us to move through those different situations that are scary for us. And I'm going to tie all these into specific practices that we are often in an organization in a moment. The curiosity. Curiosity means that I have an innate desire to learn about the world around me or the world within myself. We are investigative. We ask a lot of questions. We are excited to discover rather than going in with a judgment on somebody else or on a situation. We are interested and engaged. We love to learn, and that's really important. It's about loving learning new technical skills, but also maybe new people skills, new ways to communicate and connect with other people, new ways to delight the customer. And we really tend to not be okay with sitting in the status quo. We really want to push our boundaries, and we want to find new and creative ways to do that, which leads into the next one, creativity. And creativity means that we're doing something that's outside of the norm of how we tend to do things. And in many organizations, I hear people talk about we want creative solutions, but we actually dampen creativity because we want to follow our processes exactly the same way. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And when we're regimented into specific steps in our processes, we don't have space for curiosity or for creativity. And we then dampen our courage in the people that we're working with. So with creativity, this is really looking at experimentation. We're asking questions and we're experimenting around those questions to try new things. We're exploring, we're bringing in new ideas and using our imagination, almost like we're children again. We look at a child who's age 2, 3, 4, 5, even to a slightly older age than that. So much creativity is expressed. There's so much imagination where children can play for hours just in what is in their minds and engaging in the world around them with something that may not even be there presently, physically in front of them. So I want to engage that imagination back into the organizations, back into teams. We're not necessarily playing with our imaginary friends, but what we are doing is imagining possibilities for things to be different and better and greater for us. And how might we go about actually creating that reality? So this is from a space of believing that things are possible rather than finding reasons why things aren't possible. It's a space of abundance and opportunity rather than a lack of ability and time or money or resources. We're finding new and unique ways to tackle problems and challenges that we're encountering along the way. So along with that, we're open-minded, clearly, and we're looking at simplicity, not necessarily complexity. There's a lot of value in finding simple solutions for complex challenges rather than creating complex solutions for complex challenges or even simple challenges. So those are some of the things that I look at when I'm bringing these traits into organizations. So let's look at Agile leadership specifically. And again, Agile leadership does not mean that you're a manager or an executive, you're a product owner, scrum master, or somebody who is perceived to be in a leadership position because of their title. Agile leadership is present for everybody in the organization. So I just want to touch on this really quickly. There are reasons why we struggle with Agile in our organizations. And a lot of this comes down to the basic manifesto. These are the values that are present in agility, period, in organizations. And many organizations who are attempting to be Agile actually aren't valuing and prioritizing these values. So when we're in an organization and we're valuing process before people, we're not actually in line with the Agile values and the Agile manifesto. And really this comes down to me, we're not really valuing humanity and people. And this really matters. So we want to put a value on people before process. And I know you've probably heard all of these things before, but I'm going to challenge you to consider, how do you actually put these things into practice? So we struggle with Agile when we're focusing on planning versus changing. Agile by definition means agility, being able to change in response to the changing conditions around us. And if we can't be changing alongside those conditions, if we're not responsive to them, then we're going to struggle. When we're focusing on roles versus collaboration and changing the work that we're doing. So if we're role focused and this is my job as a tester, these are the things that I do and I don't do anything outside of that, then we're going to struggle. If we rely on being told what to do or on telling people what to do versus creating space to discover, we're going to struggle. And when we're focusing on doing things right versus doing the right thing. So all of the high-performing teams that I've worked with, or the teams that I've helped to become high-performing, they focus on people, humanity, collaboration, communication, actual agility and change, responsiveness, discovery, experimentation, and doing the right thing. Everything on the left-hand side is very supportive of, let's say, waterfall or traditional software organizations that we've seen in the last 20 or 30 years. I'm not going to go into this specifically, but these are some of the different practices and mechanisms that we have in place in Agile organizations. I'm going to pick 3 of them specifically to look at very quickly before we wrap up today. So what I would like you to consider is, regardless of the practice that you're using, and some of these are very specific to testers, and many of them really are just for the entire Agile team and different members of the team to work on together. So I want you to consider a few different questions to help make these practices and mechanisms much more powerful for you. So take them from lackluster and you're just kind of going through the motions to something that's really purposeful and powerful, impactful, supportive, to help you to be at your best. The first question is why? So why are we taking this practice? Why are we doing this? Why is it important? Why am I here? So let's look at a stand-up, and we're going to look at that in a moment. But if I'm in a stand-up meeting, why am I here? Why are we doing this, and why is this important? The second question to ask is, what is the purpose of this? What is the benefit, and what do we want to accomplish? Looking at the present moment and where we're at. Where are we now in this practice? What are the results that we're experiencing? What are people doing? And how are people behaving and feeling? And finally, looking at the future, where do we actually want to go? What results do we want to be experiencing? What are people doing? What are we going to see, hear, and feel when that is actually happening? And what does success look like? So when I'm coaching in an organization, I use these questions to help them to sit in the different practices that they are actually using, whether it's test-driven development or a stand-up meeting or retrospective or using mock-up objects, regardless of what it is. These are the questions I want them to consider so that they're not just blindly applying a practice. They're actually bringing value into making a choice to use it and actually approve with it. So if we're looking at Agile stand-ups, some of the answers to these questions would be, we want to get on the same page. We actually want to collaborate with each other and continually have course adjustments to where we are now and where we want to go. We want each person to step into being responsible, not because we demand it of people, but because people choose to step into it. We want to build understanding, empathy, transparency, express concerns, prioritize and tackle challenges. These are some of the answers that I've seen in organizations that I've worked in. You might have other answers for those questions. The next thing I just want to look at really quickly is bringing the leadership traits into this actual reflection. So looking at stand-ups, if we're looking at these 3 traits specifically, I'm going to look at, with the team that I'm working with, and I've done this in workshops also, what do we actually see as presence when creativity is present in a stand-up? So if creativity is present, people are offering options, they're sharing new technology and ideas, they're resolving issues quickly, there could be other things too. If the trait is absent, you're going to see no new ideas. People are going to say phrases like, that's how we've always done it. And they're not open to the possibility of other things being present or happening. With curiosity, when it's absent, there's going to be, again, no new questions. There's a lot of quiet and people aren't engaging with each other and asking questions to learn more so that we're all on the same page. There may be phrases like, the requirement said this, and there's no openness to discover maybe something else is true for us now. Waiting to be told what to do or waiting to be told how things need to be. When it's present, people are asking questions, and they're open questions. They're saying things like, I wonder what if, or what would it be like if, not questions that lead to a yes or no answer. And with courage, when the trait is absent, you're going to find people very, very quiet. They're going to raise issues really late. They're going to be fearful of sharing information, but also fearful of volunteering to pair with people. They're also going to be fearful of giving a really detailed information on where they're at with something and not be willing to ask for help. So when you hear phrases like, it just takes time, there's a lack of courage to work with other people on their team, to open up to how are we going to solve this together as a team. When the trait is present, you're going to see people raising risks early, admitting delays, offering solutions, willing to share, willing to pair with each other, and willing to solve challenges together. They don't believe that it's all my work, my job to get this done. They believe that the whole team owns the challenges and the solutions. So why do I bring these things together? When you look at the lackluster to purposeful and combination with the leadership traits specifically, there are two different ways to look at the same challenge that we have with us in our organization. So when we're using these questions specifically, we're looking at what is the value that we're trying to bring into this particular practice in our organization. This is going to help you step into leadership position in your team, in your organization, if you're not already embodying that in your day-to-day practice. And the next thing that you use is these sorts of characteristics and traits to evaluate where are we actually at as a team. How are people behaving? What are the phrases that they're using? What does it look like physically when people are engaged in creativity, curiosity, and courage, or when it's lacking? So there's different perspectives to use to help to bring immense value to the practices and activities that we're doing. And when you are leading the way in asking these questions and encouraging these shifts to happen, or even leading a retrospective, which we'll get to in a second, when we're engaged in leading these things without needing permission to do it, you're stepping into leadership. And you're going to help support your entire team to do that, which is going to support everyone to step into higher performance and hopefully happiness along the way. So we're going to run through two more examples very quickly. Agile practice for retrospectives. Why is this important? What is the benefit? What do we want to accomplish? So some of the answers for that could be team building. We want to bring a team together so that we understand each other, we know each other, we maybe even like each other, and we're able to work together more effectively. We want to identify and prioritize improvements so that we can continually improve ourselves, continually change so that we can achieve higher performance, but more success and more joy and delight for our customers also. We want to take the ownership to improve rather than waiting for permission from somebody else so that we see the bigger picture and how all of the actions that we're taking actually form together into that bigger picture. So that we can either take massive radical change, which some teams actually do, or incremental change that's slower and more a slower pace that is easier for people to incorporate change and stick with it. And it depends on how courageous people are as to how quickly they can adapt into change. So in leadership and retrospectives, things that you're watching out for around these specific traits, creativity, curiosity, and courage, are when they're present, you're seeing team improvements from sprint to sprint. You're seeing new ways to tackle old problems, sharing of ideas. You're seeing people actually coming up with new solutions to those problems, right? And what I mean to go deeper into that, maybe they're bringing in new ideas, new technical practices, new collaboration practices. Maybe we're talking about not doing stand-ups in the same way anymore. There's so many things that could be in that space. Curiosity, people are asking questions to understand each other. How can we do better? How else can we tackle this? You're seeing a lot of open-ended questions rather than questions that indicate someone is to blame for the problems that we had. We're looking at how can we step into collective ownership as a team that we all need to solve this problem together. When there's courage, people are raising challenges, sharing opinions and ideas, challenging and questioning respectfully. And on the absence side, there's so much there in the absence side in all of these traits. Basically, you're not seeing improvements. People are complaining about going to the retrospectives. They're complacent with how things are. They'll say things, well, that's just how it's done. We can't do anything to change it. We need to wait for permission. There's not enough money. There's a lot of reasons and excuses as to why we can't improve things, rather than finding ways to improve with what we have now, which is, our collective creativity, our brain power, our skills, our gifts, our talents with the people that we have. And there's always ways to work around problems. And finally, story mapping we'll go through quickly also. So with story mapping, why do we do this? What is the benefit? What do we want to accomplish? We want to organize in categories what it is that we're working on and understand that really well. Get really clear on what it is that we want to do. Sequence the work at a higher level so that we can prioritize what's most important for us, help make decisions, so that we develop a common understanding across the company, across all the people involved in this program or project. And when we're involved in story mapping, we'll see things like radical improvements, trying new ways to organize and plan projects, maybe even different ways to budget things as a result when creativity is present. We're asking why, what sort of questions. We're thinking outside of the toolbox that we have to work with, whether it's in our team as an Agile team or on the program and product owner side, or maybe even on the management and stakeholder side. We are making better decisions, exploring alternatives and options, and there's dynamic changes in place. We're seeing many ways to improve as an organization, not just within the context of a contained Agile team. And when those things are lacking, you don't see stories being split. We see that a plan has to be in a certain order and it's not changeable. People are, again, they're very complacent and unwilling to consider options. You'll hear things like, well, it has to be done this way and it has to be scheduled this way. All of these have to be there. It's very black and white thinking and very black and white planning. And we're looking for the shift to be on the right-hand side with those things. So when you're engaged in any of these activities in your Agile organization, you're watching for the behaviors, you're watching for what people are saying, what they're doing, you're watching for body language. And you don't have to do those things, but my recommendation is for you to step into more of a leadership role as a tester, as a developer, as a product owner, regardless of what your title is. You want to be helping to shift things towards the right-hand side, and you want to be engaging those lackluster to purposeful questions to help ensure that the team is actually sitting and considering, why are we actually doing these things? So we're not just going through the motions anymore. So in closing, I'm just going to ask you, what was the most impactful thing for you in this talk today? And what will you take back out of this particular talk to help you to be a better leader? I'm hoping that you gained a number of nuggets in there in this short time that we had together, and I wish you well. And you're more than welcome to reach out to me if you have questions, want some support, some help, and want to bounce some ideas off me. So this is where you can reach me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Selena. The question for me is, are there any tips that you have for people who work in a distributed team?
Yes. So the same sort of tips I would offer for a distributed team. The change in that is, how do you engage people who are not all in the same location? Well, you can use the lackluster to purposeful questions in a team meeting or discussion, let's say, where if you have everybody on a video call, so you can actually see each other, that's I think the biggest thing that you can do is have video sessions with everybody so that everyone can be seen and heard. When we have the distributed team discussions where people are on a phone line, they're not remembered, they're not engaged, they're not brought in very effectively. And that translation to video, like in this day and age, just make it happen. That is the most effective thing you can do. And then you can hold these sessions still in this team setting where everyone can be seen and heard, and you can be watching for the same sorts of language, words, phrases, behaviors, and you can engage these questions to help to make your activities really purposeful for you. Beyond that, if there's like a 12-hour time difference, it's a lot trickier, right? Generally, what I recommend at that point is that you probably have two different teams, because a team who's not actually able to work together and collaborate together on a frequent basis is going to struggle to be a team. You have to know each other, you have to be able to interact with each other, and just doing it through email or messaging, a 12-hour delay difference, or when someone's at home with their family, you're not engaged as a team at that point. So Find ways to build that connection so that you are actually engaged in knowing who each other is. You know what's important to them, you know what they value, maybe you know their kids' names. And the more video sessions that you can do and the more types of questions that you're asking, like what I shared here, it's going to help you with that. So that's what I would offer.
Thank you, Selena. JB Reinsberger is my guest next week, and he will share some secrets with you because he says the most effective thing that programmers can learn from him isn't about programming. So this sounds quite interesting, and I hope you tune in next week for this session. Thank you, Selena, for your talk and also for your time and for your effort you put in to share your tips with us. I hope to see you again in Potsdam.
Yes, thank you. I will. Bye.
Bye.